Well, US midterm elections are a couple of weeks away, but say the word midterms to young Americans and many will think of school exams. But some pop stars want to put young voters to a different kind of test to get them to vote. I spoke to one rising star who not only performs with the likes of Taylor Swift, he's also helping her spread the word about being heard.
Under the kitchen lights, you still look like dynamite.
He's collaborated with Ariana Grande and
Troye Sivan.
performed on Saturday Night Live and acted as a young Wolverine in X-Men.
What for you has been the highlight?
I think probably like the moment that felt most surreal was performing with Taylor Swift.
Oh my, my, my.
At just 23 years old, Troye Sivan has a fan in Taylor Swift.
I'm like super fan, #1.
Now these young artists are not only making their voices heard, they're encouraging others to do the same.
You know what else is voted on by the people is the midterm elections on November 6th. Get out and vote. I love you guys.
A little encouragement from pop stars with millions of followers goes a long way. Sivan, who grew up in Australia, has had 2 #1 singles on the Billboard Dance Club charts. His concert, the perfect draw card to sign up first-time voters.
Why is it important for you that young people come out to register to vote?
I see like the youth of today as like incredibly fired up and have this crazy hunger for knowledge and for change. We both come from Australia where it's compulsory, so this is all like super new to me. But I want people to go out and do it.
So are you registered to vote? No. Would you like to register? Sure. Awesome. Here you go.
For over a decade, Headcount, a non-partisan organisation, has been registering voters, but it's no easy task.
Typically, young people don't vote in the midterm elections. Last time when the Democrats lost control of the Senate, only 23% of young people aged 18 to 35 voted. By far the smallest turnout of any age group. That's why events like this are crucial.
People don't view the midterm elections as important as the presidential elections, but they can make just as big of a change. Are y'all registered to vote?
19-year-old Jessica Jackson is one of the Headcount volunteer team leaders.
We've registered about 500,000 voters since our organization began. We register like a couple thousand every year, and at a show we average like 30 to 100 voters.
Taylor Swift urged young people to sign up at vote.org. That organisation received 65,000 registrations in 24 hours. That's more than it typically gets in a month.
Why do you think it's important to vote?
Because people died for the right.
I think there needs to be checks and balances on the current situation that we have in the White House.
Honestly, I want it to count, but it's kind of, I'm not very hopeful about how much it will actually matter.
That is a sentiment shared by many young people. Pew Research found younger generations make up the majority of potential voters. But they may not be the majority of actual voters this November. Taylor Swift and Troye Sivan have a clear message.
I want people to go out and do it. We have to make our voices heard. It's not really like a choice anymore. I think that it's a necessity.
Well, our next guest says that young voters are more engaged this year than any of the 15 years he's worked to get them to the polls. Andy Bernstein is the executive director of Headcount and joins me now live. Good to have you with us, Andy.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, it's not just Taylor Swift and Troye Sivan. You're also tapping into other big artists like Beyonce and Jay-Z. How crucial are those events to get access to those young people to register them to vote?
Well, it all adds up. We're out with Drake right now, but we're also with a lot of more up-and-coming artists. We're with a terrific artist called Sir Sly right now. And you got to kind of be everywhere because a lot of people listen to a lot of different music and go to a lot of different places. So Headcount, we're in 60 cities around the country. We registered voters at over 1,500 events this year. And it just really adds up because every single voter that we bring in is a one-on-one interaction where you're welcoming someone to democracy. And we're out there doing that every day.
So, Andy, how many of you registered to vote in the upcoming midterms this year, and how could this election be different?
Well, we've done about 75,000 this year, and that is triple the numbers we did for the previous midterm elections. We're seeing across the board there's just much higher level of engagement, much higher interest than we've ever seen for a midterms. It feels more like a presidential election this year.
Yeah, quite incredible. Unlike where I grew up in Australia, where elections are held on a weekend, typically a Saturday, elections are typically held here on a weekday, typically a Tuesday. And there's a lot of criticism that deters people from voting because they've got to take some time off work. How do you overcome problems like that?
Well, one of the things we're seeing is a lot of companies are giving their employees time off to vote. Patagonia is actually closing its stores this year. But there are a lot of impediments to voting in the U.S., there's no doubt. And some people are keeping those impediments there intentionally. So ultimately, the way to counter that is to have people really amped up, to have people really want to participate in the midterm elections and see that change can happen. Historically, the control of Congress in the U.S. has typically changed during midterm elections. It happens almost every 4 years in one way or another. So these votes do make a difference. In a lot of ways, they make more of a difference than a vote in a presidential election. And that's something that we have to spread the word on, and we have to really create an emotional connection that people can feel. And that's, I think, especially with young voters, a key part of it.
There's one ad out there called Dear Young People Don't Vote, and it's essentially showing a lot of old white Americans saying to young people, don't vote, everything is fine, attempting to use reverse psychology. How does that work on young people when you see that historically they just don't turn out at midterm elections?
Well, there's also a school of thought that you have to make the election a positive thing, and pushing a message that says, hey, you should vote because no one does, come to the party that no one's going to, that's not the message that works with young people, and there's a lot of data to back that up. Our message, we try to be really positive. We have some ads out now that are really about that, this idea of power, that the voters are coming, that we're going to make a difference, and we're going to, the faces of young people in America are going to be those who really ultimately determine the direction of this country. And that kind of message, a lot of testing shows, is a lot more effective. But the truth is, it is a challenge. When you look at the stat you gave before, that it was about 23% of young voters, what it is we have a lot of room for growth.
Definitely.
There's huge potential.
Huge potential indeed. Andy Bernstein, great to get your perspective. A very important cause. Thanks so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thanks, everyone, for joining us for this edition of CNN Newsroom. I'm Lynda Kinkade. Stay tuned for Marketplace Africa.